Welcome to the Fieldhouse Strength Podcast. Fieldhouse Strength Podcast. If it's strength and conditioning, powerlifting, athlete performance, general fitness, and anything in between, we're talking about it. Your hosts are pros who've done it all and here to share that knowledge with you. This is the Fieldhouse Strength Podcast. And here are your hosts, Sean Jones and Jonathan Bird.
And welcome back to the Fieldhouse Strength Podcast. I'm Sean Jones, and with me as always is Jonathan Bird.
Welcome.
All right, Bird, so we're going to talk about quite a few topics today.
All right, let's cover the bases.
Okay, to give credit where credit's due, it's ptdc.com, and they've got listed what they call the 10 most controversial, polarizing, and hotly debated topics in fitness right now.
Okay.
That's a bit of a stretch as far as the title goes, but I think it's stuff that we talk about.
I tell you what, the big one in the powerlifting world right now
What's that?
is the IPF, which is the biggest world organization in powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some debate on banning the arch in the bench press.
Whoa, now that really probably is getting pretty...
Yeah, it's because you have two sides of the spectrum. Your hardcore powerlifter that believes maximizing movement matters,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the maximum arch you could possibly bend their body into.
Like, it hurts me to watch
and
it.
shorten, where you have 3-inch range of motion bench presses. And then you have your people who aren't powerlifters who are like, that's cheating!
Right.
And
Yeah.
it is, but it was inside the rules.
Yeah.
And so they're not doing it to build as much muscle as possible. They're doing it to move as much weight as possible.
Which is the goal of the sport.
Yeah. But that is really, I open up my Instagram, it's like every 5 posts.
You talk about numbers going down, they make that change.
Oh, it changes a lot.
Yeah.
There also will be a lot of shoulder injuries.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Hadn't thought about it that way.
Range of motion increases that much more.
And you got that kind of weight, yeah.
I mean, 4 inches further into that socket is a big difference.
God, a lot of torque with 600-700 pounds on there. All right, well, these topics are more what nerds in a gym argue about.
This is what people do.
Yeah, basically, and that's what I kind of wanted to see. And this is what fitness professionals would argue over, or people that think they know as much. All right, so first topic, there's 10 of them. Flexibility versus mobility. Really, I think here the best thing to do is to just give a definition. There's not a real clear difference there.
Well, your casual person's not going to know the difference.
Yeah, the way I've always discussed flexibility and mobility is flexibility is part of mobility. I don't see where you can have mobility without it. But there is a pretty strong movement I'm starting to see on YouTube and that sort of thing. Some of it's pretty cool. Like there's a guy named Ido Portal. He's, I think he's Israeli, and you can't get a lot of his stuff for free, but he just shows some of it. And it's just, he moves around a lot of different ways, and that's how he stays fit. And it's kind of cool. All of his seminars in Europe, and they're going to cost you thousands of dollars. So that's probably all I'll ever know about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. Mobility is how far your joint can move through a range of motion.
Mm-hmm.
Flexibility is all-encompassing as well. There's not really a difference in those terms. This is probably just a popular way of people describing it.
This is what happens when a nerd puts on his cap
Mm-hmm.
and talks about it, and your casual person can't understand it. For them, your casual gym goers, those two things are connected and they're the same.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing about nerds. When we're talking about nerds, we don't necessarily mean somebody you would put in a trash can.
I'm talking about you.
Oh, yeah. See? But most people couldn't pick me up and put me in a trash can.
No,
Yeah.
When I say that, I mean people who are very intelligent in that field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a guy like me who most of his things he learned was from just lifting weights.
Right.
Asking questions to people who are smarter than him.
Yeah. This is where a lot of mine came from, too. And most of my stuff is not original because nothing really is. But you have to be flexible. Here's where it comes into play in my training and in yours as well, and a lot of people in the powerlifting community that I've dealt with because of you, is poor mobility or lack of range of motion will make you weaker.
Correct.
If you can't move your joints enough to make the muscles contract that need to contract, they're not going to be used, and that's going to make you weak, bottom line.
So this is a double-edged sword for me.
Mm-hmm.
Training athletes, flexibility and mobility are a must. They're as important as any strength training.
For a number of different reasons.
Okay. In the powerlifting world, flexibility is at times your enemy.
Right.
Because you don't want to go beyond, like we just started, the idea is to maximize the most weight in the shortest range of motion possible.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be tight enough that your muscles are restricting you getting so far in the squat. You don't want to be able to squat your ass to your heels necessarily. You want to get to just the point of where you can get white lights.
Yeah.
But it also can be counterproductive because it's going to lead to a lot of injuries.
Yeah. And then you have people that are completely afraid of flexibility because they think any kind of flexibility is going to make you weak. And those are the ones that you can't be stiff because you have to be able to complete the movement.
That being super tight and immobile and not stretching and not doing those things is really an old school way of thinking in powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
We've become so much smarter in how we train and what we do that we're getting away from that and doing more mobility, more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that really matters. What's your Supple Leopard boy?
Kelly Stark.
Yeah, that he really
Starrett.
I think. Anyway, got a big push there for him from a while, and then a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, it's a good book because most of it is legit. And hey, I'll go ahead and take my shot. CrossFit needs people like him.
Agreed.
He's had to come up with a lot of good ideas, I think, because of people that do CrossFit, and he does it too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's not an insult. I mean, that's throughout. Powerlifters are pretty stupid in general when it comes to things like that. And I really shouldn't say like your elite level guys aren't, but your casual guy at the gym, he's not reading the things he needs to read, so he doesn't know.
Right. Yeah. And then you've got ego lifting where they won't listen to you anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So flexibility, the benefits of it, and mobility, we'll talk about both. Flexibility leads to mobility. So two types of flexibility within your muscle. There's also what's called extensibility, and that's how stretchy your muscle is. Okay, so for instance, how far can your hamstring stretch before it's an issue? And then, how tight are the muscles around a joint? And then your mobility is going to be affected by that. So there are three basic ways that I train people to become more mobile. One is you have to start where people are, and people argue with me a lot about this. You never stretch before a workout. You never stretch a cold muscle. USA Weightlifting, they make it sound like you're holding a gun to your head if you do that.
Yeah.
I say you never stretch an unprepared muscle.
See, I had a lot of guys one of the guys that is probably the biggest foundation of my strength training was very anti-stretching for weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was talking about how pointless it was. But he had a very detailed warm-up.
Right.
It's just a different way of going about it, in my opinion.
Exactly.
I always have to stretch my hamstrings because I feel like they're going to pop off.
Yeah.
But that's due to years of injuries.
Right. And the only time that I do static flexibility at the beginning of a workout is probably the first 3 weeks that I train somebody. Because that means that if I'm doing that, then they are a couple issues there. One, they may not be coordinated enough to do a dynamic warm-up yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're so tight they can't get to the range of motion for the workout.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is you're measuring all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a gauge of what they're capable of. It's not frivolous. It's important to know what your client is able to do and not able to do.
Right. And your muscles fire in a certain sequence, where they stretch in a certain sequence. If you ever stretch your hamstring, I'm sure we all have, and you feel it in your calf only, then you better get your calf straightened out before you do the hamstring stretch. And that kind of goes to the next topic they've got listed is corrective exercise or shut up and lift.
Yeah, this should be good.
Yeah.
Being you are a corrective exercise specialist, yeah. And I'm the idiot that's torn everything in my body.
Well,
guess which one you think you should do?
I don't know if you heard me and Greg sitting down on those bleachers the other night. I think everybody else in the stands did. And so I wish I'd have known this stuff sooner.
Yeah.
Now, the corrective exercise can be taken pretty literally and nerdily. Mm-hmm. If you stick right with what's considered these hard and fast standards. Of course, I had to have some training in it from different organizations, and I still use a lot of those principles. But I've also, over 20 years, learned that those principles don't apply in every situation.
Yeah.
And the reason that they don't apply in a lot of cases now is because people have different issues than they did 20 years ago.
No doubt. The athletes in the strength training world is always evolving. 20 years from now, people may look back at these podcasts and laugh at how wrong we are.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be new information available.
Mm-hmm.
Things we just didn't know.
Yeah.
100%, I believe my pick would still be attached if I'd known then what I know now.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I didn't have good mobility. I had shoulder issues prior from playing college football.
Mm-hmm.
I'd suffered multiple minor pec strains over years until it decided to go away.
Yeah, a strain is, time your strain is going to tear a little bit. Yeah. And so corrective exercise, there aren't a lot of them out there, a lot of people out there that are well known. There are some that are really ridiculous. I think Kelly Starrett's legit. He's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a physical therapist, smart guy.
There's always an avenue. If there's an avenue to make money, there's people to find a way to manipulate.
Yeah. I wrote an article about one of those guys. And I really would mention his name, and I cannot think of it right now. As soon as I do, I'll put him out there. But he has some of the most well-produced videos on YouTube. Really impressive, like, camera work and that sort of stuff. And he does a lot of tricks, but I never see his clients doing them.
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah, and I think where I took him to task on my article there was an article on his site saying that proclaiming the death of the deadlift.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one. So he doesn't believe that you should deadlift because of all the dangers of it. Not even going to get into all that. That is certainly a situation where I would say shut up and lift, or just shut up. Because he has no idea what he's talking about, and he's using a lot of big words that people aren't familiar with, so it makes him sound like he knows what he's talking about, and people are being misled and doing the stuff he's saying, and it's not helping them. Corrective exercise, in my opinion, is that's a lack of a better term. My goal is to increase someone's performance to what level they want from where they are.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, really, in any sense, we're correcting issues. You are too, whether it's a form issue or a technique issue with a power lifter, or if we're on the football field and we're correcting footwork or stance. We're just trying to, just make them more efficient. Where what I do goes a little bit further is I look at, what muscles are too tight for you to make a movement, what's causing pain. Is it from a traumatic injury that I can't do anything about, or is it from an overuse injury that if we fix that movement pattern, then we're in good shape? And I do that with pretty much every client that I have because everybody has something. And so the order I would go in is, let's do this corrective exercise. Okay, you're good now. Shut up and lift. Now, the third one is compound versus isolation exercises.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about that one?
Well, it kind of all depends on what your goal is, but I don't think anybody who trains should not be doing compound movements. I think you have to do those to build a muscle base. And I think male or female, don't get it twisted. Oh, I don't want to lift weights. I'm bulky and full of muscle. Like, that's not how this works.
If you're not already, you won't.
Yeah.
And to kind of give a definition for those that don't know, compound means you're moving more joints at one time, and you may even be doing 2 exercises that are combined together, like a squat press and that sort of push press, that sort of thing. Now, the second part of that, isolation exercises, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist because our nervous systems recruit our muscles as groups. And the National Academy of Sports Medicine refers to that phenomenon as the kinetic chain. So we've got a stack of joints. There's muscles attached to each one. And when one fails, the other one takes over. So one thing I used to do when I would teach classes at the community colleges, I would find a bodybuilder and I would say, what's your favorite isolation exercise? And they would tell me bicep curl, whatever. I said, what if I told you you can't isolate a muscle? And then they would argue with me. So I'd have them come up and hold a 15-pound dumbbell out to the side. And so they're like, I'm like, what is it isolate? My shoulder. Like dumbass, it's my shoulder. Yeah. And then I'd make them hold it. Now where do you feel it? My forearm a little bit. Well, how about now? My opposite side oblique. As you fatigue, other muscles take over. Yeah. So there's no such thing as isolation exercise. And if you want to be an athlete, you're not going to focus on single joint exercises.
You're not very good.
Not if you're any good. Yeah. So no bilateral versus unilateral lower body training.
Okay.
So one way or two way, basically, right? What do you think, Bird?
These guys are just trying to make things way complicated, and you're asking the same question again in a different form.
Exactly.
Yes, you need to train multiple joint, multifaceted movements. I'm sorry, it just has to be that way.
Yeah.
There needs to be some unilateral lifts. Obviously there's some things that you use. Going back to the corrective stuff, that has to be unilaterally. I mean, it's a double-edged sword on both sides of this.
As a power lifter, would you take away all multilateral movement?
No.
Never. Right? So, but all you have to do is squat straight up and down, but you got to walk to the bar.
Yeah.
So.
And what happens when you get out of position?
Yeah, how do you correct it, right? And so that's just, if you're on either side of that extreme, you are really wrong on either side of it.
Agreed.
Okay, so 5. These are really questions that I'm going to start making fun of here in a second. So moderate reps versus higher and lower reps. It depends.
Yeah. What is your goal? Where are you at in your training?
Yeah.
Those two things matter.
Yeah.
If I'm 30 weeks out from a competition,
mm-hmm.
I'm not really worried about what my low rep stuff is doing. I'm trying to add muscle. I'm trying to build up a bigger base. I'm trying to add, muscle mass to my body.
Yeah.
I have a different goal or a different mindset.
Yeah.
It's going to vary. It's a 100% it depends question.
And most of the answers to these questions are conditional. And this is for people that don't know very much and they want to find out. And they'll ask me, is 5 reps above 8 good?
Yeah, well, what's best? What's the best for me to do? I've gotten that one a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best workout for me to do? Well, that's going to change all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't have the hours to put in to put this for you. You can pay me and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
What's best for you.
Yeah.
But you can't just walk in and say, hey, I want to put on a little bit of muscle. What's the best workout for me to do?
Do you work out at all now? Anything will work for 6 weeks.
Yeah. No doubt.
So the whole rep thing is, let me explain this then. Maybe this will help. Your body reacts in different ways. And the time under tension is what it's all based on. So 1 rep, 15 reps, there's nothing magical about the number. It's how much time you're keeping your muscles under tension. That's just a way to do it. And so moderate reps generally are only effective if you've got a moderate amount of weight. You should be lifting as much as you can with that amount of weight. If you're doing 12 reps, the 12th rep should be hard. And that's generally in the hypertrophy phase of training where your muscles get bigger. And, as a power lifter, at some point, you start working in the max strength range, which is a lot lower reps and a lot higher weight. Well, it only makes sense that it would work that way because if it's really hard, you can only do so much of it. But the body responds to it differently. When you look at really high reps and low weight, and then you look at the moderate reps for hypertrophy, like 12, those are similar in the fact that they make a physical change to the muscle because the muscle either gets bigger or it doesn't take on as much lactic acid as you work. But power and strength are more of a nervous system response. You want to recruit as many muscle fibers as you possibly can to lift heavy weight, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
And when power is just basically speed strength, I want to recruit as many as I can, as fast as I can.
I always break it down to people who are just getting going as simple as this. Whatever movement it is, do it. Add a little more weight every week, and eventually you get stronger.
That's really what it is.
Yeah, there's the secret to strength training.
Yeah. We make it really hard so we can write up a list and get clicks. I mean, this is a good title they have here. Yeah. 10 controversial, polarizing, and hotly debated topics. I don't know if this is hotly debated by anyone that has a life.
Barely you and I.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure this is even a heated debate. We just agree on it. Yeah. So, this all depends in terms of rep ranges. Number one, this is always the question to answer is, what is your training experience? Are you just starting, or you've been doing it for a while? Is it not working? Then what do you want to accomplish? What's the end goal? And then you'll determine it from there.
And how long do we have to do it?
And how long do we have to do it? And I can't believe I didn't think of that because I see it every day.
Yeah. Hey, I've got this I want to get done in 6 weeks. 6 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah, you better.
What?
Yeah.
How do you think we're going to get that done in 6 weeks?
Yeah. I had
back to our previous podcast. Do some of those things.
Yeah, that's right. You're talking 6 weeks. I actually had a conversation. It's that time of year. It's football season, and so one of our other coaches were talking. He was talking about how great power cleans were. I said, totally agree. And that's got to be something you got in the weight room. I said, well, sometimes, yeah. No, it has to be. And then so I said, there's a lot of teaching that goes into that, and you only have so much time. And as a trainer, I might have a couple of months. Now, I'm not going to spend 3 or 4 sessions, if I'm lucky, teaching someone how to do a correct power clean unless they want to compete.
Look, to teach an Olympic movement, you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Like
you have to know your stuff. It can't be I learned it from. You really need to be on it. Like we, as a football program here, we haven't got past a basic hang clean yet.
Right.
Now, do we deadlift? Yeah. We do jump shrugs and things, but we haven't got to the point where we can get a full good clean from a whole 80 guys. And guess what we're not going to do?
Try to teach 80 guys.
Yeah. I'm not going to endanger these kids by rushing a movement that takes a lot of time to be really good at.
And you talk about a compound movement. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of how many, but there are so many movements, individual movements involved in a clean and jerk. I mean, you have to get triple extension, which is ankle, knees, and hips. Then you have to squat again. You have to rack it.
Look, I don't even move past teaching the deadlift on a trap bar with the young kids until that is mastered. We don't even go to the straight bar yet.
Because they just need to get stronger.
Well, most of the kids have never lifted weights before.
Exactly.
You're just going to throw them in there and start power cleaning them?
Yeah, right.
Hey, you want to get sued? I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and they don't know how to pick up a bar in front of them yet. So it's.
I don't remember putting clips on stuff yet.
Right. And the thing is, you can get a lot done, and in my opinion, pretty close to the same thing done. If you want to come out and measure it, that, I'm not going to, but by taking each implement of that Olympic movement and just adding it in.
I will tell you this. I've done this for 15 plus years now. I've never sent a kid off to college and they'd be like, oh, that kid's not strong enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that if kids came in and they just picked it up in the first week, yeah, do it. It's a great movement.
I promise you by the end of this semester, we will do some power clean.
But how long is a semester? It's not right away.
And that's guys that have been lifting weights for a couple of years before we've gotten to that. And yes, I know all countries all over the world, including this one, start kids doing Olympic lifts at a very young age. They started at a young age. They understand what's going on. Our kids don't understand that yet, and that's a recipe for injury.
Well, they start them with broomsticks at 8 years old when they're still pliable. When you get them, they've gone through puberty, and they're not pliable. They can't pick up that skill as quickly.
I literally start teaching it with PVC pipe.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the technique is what matters.
Yeah.
And I know, like, the guys that tend to be the most explosive that I've seen in the weight room are the ones that are the best at power clean. But they're the ones that are most likely to be good at power clean to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I can teach plenty of explosive movements using, various movements. I mean, all I have to do is add some sort of accommodating resistance to their squat, to their deadlift, and they're learning to be explosive through the hips and getting those through. Now, once we've got that done, now we can work on trying to explode it through that clean. It's a progress. It's not just something you walk in and let somebody do.
Well, I always used to say there's a continuum. There's on the extreme end, there are the purists. And then on the other extreme, there are sellouts. And so the purist is, say, for instance, the kettlebell guy. I love kettlebells. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
But kettlebell is the only thing that you need in the gym. That's not true. It's a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. And
then on the other end, they're willing to pedal or sell or use whatever they think is going to make them the most money or the most popular or benefit them the most. You have to be open to new ideas, and you have to be flexible because in high school, you don't get to recruit. You get the guys that you get. And I have even heard a college strength coach, I think he was at Central Michigan or something like that at the time, and I really like the way he did it. He said that freshmen were not allowed to do cleans because they had to go through the process of learning them. And, then by the time they get to the sophomore year, they're ready to do Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. And in that setting, you can do it because you have them for 4 years.
You're captured.
Exactly. And that's a rare situation. So here's one, I think, that is a little bit strange. No, it's not. No, actually, I was looking at the wrong one. This is a good one, I think. Full body lifts versus direct core work.
Okay. So, yes to both. I mean, you need to have full body lifts, but I also like direct core work. Not so much you're doing sit-ups, but, I'm an advocate of doing the McGill Big Three. I like doing stir-to-pots. I like doing, so it's a combination of both. Like, I really like suitcase carries.
Yeah.
Like bottoms-up kettlebell carries.
Yeah.
I like a lot of those things that build for lack of a better term, a tight trunk.
I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of most people of what the core is. People think, when I do crunches, I'm working on my core. Part of it, you've got 3 systems that make up the core. You've got, more of an internal system, what they call the localized system, that surrounds your spine, like your deep core musculature. And then you've got, what's I think they refer to as, I don't remember, local stabilization, I think it is. And that's moving out to your hips. And then you've got the dynamic, which actually keeps your extremities steady. So the way that I define The core is abs, hips, and lower back. So, like you said, it's both. Most people don't think of a kettlebell swing as a core activity. Absolutely is if done correctly.
Correct.
Your abs are tight like you're holding a plank, and if you're doing it correctly, you're building up your hips, your shoulders. You cannot do a correct kettlebell swing unless you have a strong enough core to hold yourself steady. And that's any lift.
Yeah, and that's the thing here. Let's take a step back to one of our previous questions. You know how we kind of went down the rabbit hole of teaching power planes.
Mm-hmm.
I start with being able to swing the kettlebell. If you can't swing the kettlebell, you can't hip hinge, stay tight, and rotate. You got no business trying to do a power plane.
And that's exactly right. It goes back to the corrective exercise topic, because most kids have to be able to get their hips to move in a way that would even make it fruitful for you to try to do that. I know that we just don't see that. Even our better athletes have issues that have to be dealt with. As far as full body lifts versus direct core work, no matter what that other guy from I guess there's a reason I'm not remembering his name, he thinks the deadlifts should be eliminated. That's going to be a great core lift if you start light, and as you get stronger, add weight. Like you said, it's that simple. Farmer walks, like you said, bottom up presses with the kettlebell. Those are great for shoulder stability, and you're standing.
Yep.
The only exercises that I say would not be good for your core is if you're sitting on a machine.
Yeah. If you can do a movement standing, you should.
Absolutely.
That's kind of my general rule.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're getting more bang for your buck.
Exactly. And I know people have asked me before, when are we going to work on our core? And you just did for the whole session. And because we were doing kettlebell swings, we were doing squats with a goblet. I mean, if you hold a kettlebell in front of yourself and squat with it, you're working your core. And, we talk about keeping good form. When somebody breaks form, all that means is they can't control their posture anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what it comes down to is I look at things, I kind of rip off Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. So you've got the triangle at the bottom, you're just trying to get food and not get eaten by something else, right? And then at the top, you've found love and everything's great. Well, when people walk in and they've never trained before, they're at the bottom, which means to not get eaten means you just get somewhere where you can hide. It's really simple.
Yeah.
A lot of things that can help you there. Anything works for people that are at that stage as long as you don't hurt them. And then it becomes more and more specialized as you go up. So definitely going to keep those people on their feet unless some injury keeps them from doing that. So yeah, I think it's both. I think we agree there. So next one here. Okay, this is a pretty good one. Core stability. I don't know if it's poorly worded, but core stability versus core flexion and or rotation.
All right. I'm going to go with you have to have both.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're treating a rotational athlete, you need to be strong through all planes.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an athlete where you don't need to be strong in every position.
And there's not a person that doesn't either.
Yeah.
I mean, so when they're talking about core stability, obviously it means being able to hold it. Core flexion is bending side to side, and rotation is turning around or, twisting, basically. I think that the best way to train core rotation is by training core anti-rotation to make it strong. So, say, for instance, there's one I used to do where I'd have somebody hold a ball, and I would hit the ball, and they would have to keep me from moving them. That's going to activate the muscles that are involved in rotation a whole lot more than just turning side to side with a ball. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things are like that. You need to the bottom part of a squat, the eccentric movement in a squat, unless I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, That's what builds the strength to come back up as much as anything, right? That's what tears your muscle fibers down, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And so what you have to work on to really get good is as that transitional period at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, core stability, core flexion, all that's necessary. And the way that you train it is not as straightforward as you might think. You have to create instability to develop core stability. You have to be on an unstable surface and push yourself to the edge of that so that the muscles involved in stability will start working.
So I need to squat on a boosie ball.
That's what people thought 15 years ago. I remember watching them do it. Yeah, they'd have 135 pounds on their back, standing on a BOSU ball, or actually just on a completely round stability ball. Seen that. And I was like, what are you trying to prove here? Are you trying to get in the circus or what? So traditional cardio versus metabolic resistance training.
Say it again.
Traditional cardio, which I'm assuming is treadmill stuff or whatever.
Running.
Yep. Versus metabolic resistance training.
What's your goal?
What's your goal? 100%. If your goal is to lose weight, not traditional cardio. Because it takes more to get the same. It's hard, just like with weightlifting. You got to add a little bit all the time, right?
Yeah.
If I start running a mile a day, that gets easier, and then I have to run 2 miles. But it continues to get easier. How far are you going to end up running? And you can only run so fast. So I know that. Here's one theory I've heard that I thought was interesting. Forever we've thought that running made people skinny. But it may just be that skinny people are better at running.
In my case, that's accurate.
Yeah, so metabolic resistance training. So I never make anybody run. Even if the only exception is if they have to prepare PT test type thing, then we'll work on that. But
then you're just coaching to the test, really.
That's all I'm doing. But we're not going to start doing that until we build up a foundation of metabolic resistance training inside. And I have trained people that have gone in some pretty high-level federal law enforcement agencies, every branch of the military, and it's worked. Yeah. So here's how it works. If you're trying to lose weight, walking on a treadmill for 2 hours or jogging on one for 2 hours not going to do the trick, because eventually you're going to start catabolizing muscle. And with metabolic resistance training, you're gonna start to. The whole goal is what they call excess post-exercise oxygen consumption.
That's complicated.
Yeah. So basically, oxygen burns fat when you start getting in. That's the whole thing behind running, right? So they did a study where they had people do steady state cardio on a treadmill, right, for about 45 minutes. And then they had somebody do interval training, which is speeding up, slowing down, run really hard, for those of you who don't know, and for about 30 minutes. The traditional cardio, the people that jogged or walked at the same rate of speed, it did elevate their metabolism for about 45 minutes afterward. You want to guess how long the other group was elevated for?
Immediately after.
How long it stayed that way?
Oh, no, I don't know.
36 hours.
Yeah.
So it's much more efficient.
Yeah, I've read somewhere something along similar lines that it was the same thing with lifting weights, like heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
That, it burned for so long versus your immediate stoppage of direct cardio.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about, when you see people that are getting ready for, I've seen people get fat getting ready for a long race, like a marathon.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you look at them and they look, because they've lost muscle and they're still eating the same number of calories. And, I'm not saying they get obese, but they definitely are not, they don't look as fit as they did before. And, a race like a marathon, I mean, that's, like we've said before, not healthy. that's a goal in it of endurance, you know.
It's a task.
Yeah, and so, what your goal is to get your metabolism to work at a higher level all the time, and we've said before, your body adapts to what you do, and so as you continue to do that and eat well and sleep, your metabolism is going to be at a higher level at all times. All right. So number 9 is interval training versus steady state cardio. That's what we just said. You know, I think their point before was jogging or lifting weights.
Yeah.
But it's
either way, we just answered both questions.
And so last question they have is advanced monitoring techniques versus the feel method.
Huh.
You get arrested for the feel method.
Yeah.
Oh, something different. Yeah.
No, so some of that comes back to, it's interesting. So there's a lot of people, you really want to do RPE, rate of perceived exertion, correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have monitors on the bar and speed movement and everything else. We just do it by feel, and again, I was taught this by somebody else, but a 10 is that's all you could do. A 9, you had 1 more rep. A 8, you could have had 2 more reps. A 7, you could have 3 more reps. And then after that, it's kind of really foggy to be able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, at an advanced level, you know, you track bar speed, angles, everything else. Yes.
Hey, an accelerometer, I'd love to have one for every bar in here.
But,
how much money do we have, though?
Yeah, you know, and the reality of it is that's way too complicated for most people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are some pretty cool phone apps you can put up there that tracks the bar speed and pattern and everything else. And, you know, if you could get to that point, if you're at the point where that matters that much, you're at a very high level anyway.
Exactly. And I will say this, I had access to an accelerometer one time, and not for the reasons that this question would lead to, for instance, getting better results, but I was able to teach an exercise better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Somebody did not understand the speed that you needed in a kettlebell swing.
Yeah.
So we hooked up an accelerometer, and ever since that client got to the right speed, they've done it correctly ever since.
Yeah, I mean, a great way when you're teaching a throwing event like in track, shot, discus, you know, being able to accelerate and put enough force into what you need to be doing. And while you may think you're putting as maximum into it, you may not be. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's, don't get me wrong, man. I would love, if you go back to some of our previous, you know, I'm a very explosive lifter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to me, but I never learned how to grind a lift either. I've just never been good at it. So like, it's what you focus on, whether it gets better or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I will say the feel method only works under certain conditions. One is you understand what you're looking for, but the most important is, are you a hard worker?
Yeah, like it comes down to your experience levels with stuff like that. For me,
Sure.
I can tell you after my second or third warm up how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Because I've done it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I can take my opening attempt in a lift and tell you, hey, the ceiling is this today, probably, you know, give or take 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, 90% of the time, like I'm really close.
Yeah.
And I can do it with the people that I'm training and, you know, every kid in the gym. Like I can watch their bar speed and know their form stays true. This is about the ceiling. This is where you're going to go. But not everybody can do that. And, you know, I've been doing this for 25 years now.
Yeah. And I think the feel method only works when you're coaching someone. I think it's a character-based issue.
Yeah. I mean, I generally use RPE with people I train remotely.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at their videos and telling them, pretty sure you sandbag that. So it's valuable. The feel method is valuable.
Sure.
When, especially if you have a heavy day job, construction, you're on your feet a bunch, et cetera, that matters. Because if you're giving someone, of course, if you have a accelerometer, it's different. But, you know, if you're telling somebody they got to go 90% for 3 reps today, Well, 90% today is not necessarily what it is on a day you've spent 7 hours working in the sun.
And I've always been a big percentage guy, but you're exactly right. You can't do 90% of your max if you've been on a roof all day in August. Can't do it. Yeah. So, I mean, both, and for most of these things, I think the isolation exercises were the ones that we...
That was the only,
Yeah.
And that's just a misconception of what that truly is.
Exactly. And unless your goal is only aesthetics, then, don't do them that much.
Yeah.
You can do them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing them. But as far as what's going to be most beneficial for you, the compound movements will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think we've talked that one over a little bit. That was kind of a list that was made for people to look at. But, if you have done it for a little while and you know what you're talking about, you're going to realize that you can find things that help everywhere.
Yeah.
And you should never marry yourself to one method or to one idea because like everything in life, it's an ever-changing atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Like our kids during the season, we don't do the same thing with them that we do in the off season.
Not nearly the same percentages, not nearly the same intensity.
Yep.
And those guys recover like it's nobody's business. They're fine 4 hours later.
Yeah. But you can sure hurt them if you want to try.
Yep. You can break it for sure.
No doubt about it. But yeah. So if you take anything away from this, in my opinion, it's it's not. None of these really are this versus that.
Yeah.
It's at what level you want to use them and the amount you want to use them. And every single one of them depends on the person and their goal.
Agreed.
So, any parting thoughts, Bird?
I think it's a running theme, and it always will be. Whenever you get those questions, it depends.
It does. And I've told people that so many times. Your best answer should be, it depends.
It varies person to person, situation to situation. Here's the things you need to factor.
Yeah, that's it. So I guess the final parting thought here is, don't become a purist in any of these. Do what works and what helps.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of things that can help.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that's another one in the can, Bird. So we will see you guys next time.